So just explain to me, the politics around this. You can see Labor politicians really piling it on. Stephen Jones saying he hopes there are no more interest rate rises because they're worried about the hurt to families and so forth. But this is where the Reserve Bank Governor, where Philip Lowe, I think, explained this well. If you don't get rid of the inflation, as you say, the hurt goes on for much longer.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the partisan split. So Jerome Lexell, another Labor member of the Economics Committee, also was very critical of Phil Lowe prior to these meetings, but didn't bring home that attack. What I found most surprising in this week's hearings was the very strong defence from coalition senators in the Estimates Committee meeting on Wednesday. Phil Lowe was repeatedly asked, lovely softball questions like, aren't people being unfair in their criticisms of you? And don't you have lots of reasons to complain? And wasn't this criticism silly? All coming from coalition senators who were very keen to get behind Phil Lowe. We didn't see that partisan split today, which I suspect was because the ALP backed off.
OK, so then we go to the economy as it sits right now, because quite clearly what we can see from the United States is there is sticking underlying inflation. If that occurs here in Australia, the Reserve Bank has got no choice but to keep going. That's the issue right now. And that risks, as he says, the narrow path that could tip Australia's economy over and lead to higher unemployment.
This would be my big criticism of monetary policy at the moment, that at the moment the economy is overheating seriously, and I don't think they're doing enough about it. So they said today that they think a non-inflationary rate of unemployment is a bit over 4%. So we're well below that at the moment. The unemployment rate is unsustainably high, and it's only going to increase to something neutral by the end of the forecast horizon. That's not enough to get the inflation rate down from 7% down to 3%.
And there is the fundamental issue for Australia, because we do know that we might be 6 months behind, say, the United States. We can see the trends that are coming. Yes, inflation is falling, but then there's other things like you suddenly get retail sales this week bounce because people are in jobs. They're affording these price rises. And while people have got jobs, they will afford the price rises. They will afford companies like Telstra, we've spoken to on the program today, raising their prices. Wesfarmers raising prices because they too have got costs going up.
And I mentioned the unemployment rate, but we're also seeing lots of big pressures from other sources. The electricity prices, anyone that's looked at their bill this last month will have had a terrible shock. But also rents is one of the biggest single expenses that many households have, and they're set to rise very, very quickly.
OK, so do we expect any change in tune from the Reserve Bank Governor between now and September, given the fact that Jim Chalmers has got the choice in the future as to whether he's reappointed or not, and you sense that some of those Labor members suggest that will be a no? Where does Philip Lowe go to set his legacy up as a Reserve Bank Governor?
That's a great question. I think it's shot. I mean, he's had several years now to deliver on an inflation target. He's missed for almost his entire tenure. It's going to be very difficult to save in the last few months.